from DOGGY, and if you're watching this video, you probably came over from the Decoding Your Canine Summit. So welcome to my channel. I highly recommend you to subscribe so that you can get access to free training resources every single week when I put out a new video. Before we get started, I also recommend that you hit the link below for DOGGYU.com and sign up for my weekly newsletter so that you can get tips and tricks for training your dog right to your inbox. The webinar that you're about to see today is from my Patreon page, which is patreon.com/DOGGYU, where I have live Q&As every month, as well as special topics and new videos nearly every week on exercises in training your dog, both pet and service dog. So if that interests you, you can check it out at patreon.com/DOGGYU. This webinar I have for you today is all about increasing your trainer toolbox. We're going to go over marker training, luring, shaping, capturing, targeting, and much more. So thank you so much for being here. Remember to subscribe, check out my other training videos, sit back, relax, and have an awesome day. Happy training. Okay, all right, so we're gonna get started today. And today, as always, I always say that it's going to be a half an hour, and it never is. So I do expect it to run over a little bit. We're gonna talk about all different types of methods of training that we're going to add to our trainer toolbox. And I also have video of those things so we can see applications in real life. And of course, I'm going to show you mistakes and how you can make things better because I love showing you mistakes. So we're going to get started. I do have some notes that I'm going to look at to make sure I don't miss anything. Before we talk about any type of training method, we need to first talk about markers. So a marker is a sound or noise or a signal. And while this is geared towards people who might be new to these methods of training, I think there will be stuff for people who have been training for a while as well, because it's always good to see new ways of training something. So markers. Marker is a sound, noise, or signal used to mark the desired behavior the instant it occurs. So for me, when I think about this, I think about taking a picture of the behavior that I want. So I want to take the picture the moment the dog that does the thing that I want them to do, and then I'm going to reinforce it. So a marker is always followed up by a primary reinforcer, specifically food, if I'm going to click and say yes. I use the clicker and the word yes interchangeably. That being said, you want to think of a clicker like a scalpel and the word yes kind of like a butter knife. The clicker is more precise in most cases, but sometimes like a butter knife will do just fine. And the clicker is, especially if you're training with multiple trainers, like so there's more than one person in your house that's training with your dog, the clicker is going to sound the same no matter who uses it. So if, one partner uses it and then the other partner uses it, the sound is the same. And it also has no inflection. So when I say yes, and I'm like specifically like super excited about my dog doing something, I'm going to be like, yes. And if it's like, okay, I'm going to be like, yes. And like, that is not something I'm intentionally doing, but the dog can hear the sounds of our voice. So can you use the word yes as your marker and then reinforce with food? Absolutely. I prefer to use a clicker for acquiring new behavior. The other thing to note about markers is markers can mean different things. So if I click, that means the dog, I'm either going to feed them directly or I'm going to toss the food for them to get. However, I have markers that mean other things so that the dog can expect what's going to happen. So I have a look back. So if I say look back, that means the reinforcement is behind you. So maybe I have put a bowl behind you with food in it, and you're to go and get that reinforcer. There could be a scatter. So that's when I yell scatter and I scatter a bunch of food across the floor. I use search when I'm out in the woods, and search specifically means I'm going to throw the food behind you, so you should go back and get it. And then party, which means I don't have the reinforcement on me and we're going to run together to get the reinforcers. So markers could be their own separate thing, but I just wanted to give a little bit information about markers. Other things to remember are mechanics are important. So we want to mark and then reach for the reinforcement so that we don't get a dog that's like watching our body instead of listening for the actual mark. And then also the marker is an IOU. So it's like a check you're writing to the dog that says like, I have marked this and 100% of the time you're going to get food for it. So if you click wrong, which will happen for sure, or you mark wrong and you're like, oh shoot, I didn't mean to mark that. That's okay. You're still going to feed the dog. That's the wonderful thing about positive reinforcement, is that you're not using punishment. So if you fed the dog one time for something that you didn't wish to mark, it's really not going to be a big deal. So we just mark and reinforce everything that we've marked. If your dog just like does a good job, but food isn't what you're going to be giving, you can just tell them good dog. Okay, so that's a little bit just about markers before we go forward, because I am going to be talking about those as we move on. And then the other thing is about reinforcers. So reinforcers are generally, when we're talking about the training that you're going to see today, we're talking about food reinforcers. And the dog gets to decide what's reinforcing. And that's really, really important. You could be trying to train, you know, your dog with something that they don't like. And so then that's not reinforcing to them. It's like if you try to feed me fish, I don't like fish, so I'm not going to work for fish. So same thing with your dog. They have preferences, and you might have to try out several things to figure out what's going to be best for your dog and what types of values of rewards you're going to use in different situations. All right, so let's talk about training methods that we use in positive reinforcement. So the first one, the one that most people are really, really familiar with, is luring. Think of luring like you have a cookie magnet. So the dog's generally going to follow your hand with a cookie in it. And as they follow, their body is going to do the behavior you're looking for them, because generally wherever the head goes, the body will follow with your dog. So then you just mark and reward and slowly fade the cookie out of the picture. Generally with luring, the hand signal will look really similar. Like it's going to be like a version of what the eventual, like if your lure, for instance, is sit, right? Usually when you're teaching your dog to sit, usually what you'll do is you'll take the cookie, you'll put it in your hand, you'll put your hand up with the cookie in it, the dog's eyes go up, their butt goes down. When you get rid of the lure, your hand now goes up like this. There's no cookie in it, but it looks very similar to how you were luring it. So eventually what happens is the hand signal looks like what the lure looked like, generally. So this is the one that most people really understand well. I am going to show a video so you can see me using it to train a come around or crowd control behavior, depending on what you want to use it for. So let me share my screen. And of course, I don't have it up. Hold on one sec. I'll get that up for us. And then we can just take a quick look at some luring with something that maybe you haven't lured before. Here we go. And where'd my Zoom go? I promise I'm a trainer and not a tech specialist. There we go. All right, we're cooking with gas now. All right, so luring. So I'm going to talk a little bit on that. So we're going to do some luring. So we're going to start with a hard luring both hands. We're going to work on our come around or our circle, whatever you want to call it. So I'm going to set my dog up in heel position with my lure. Got my cookies in both hands. I'm going to pull this up so it's not dangling in her face. We're going to lure her around to the back, feed, around to the front, feed, around to the back, feed, around to the front, feed, around to the back, feed, around to the front, feed. And can I just get a thumbs up to make sure you can hear what I'm saying on the video if you're watching this? And I'm just going to continue playing it. I just want to make sure that everyone can hear it because I had some trouble with that at one point. But we're just luring around in front. Let's see. Yes, sounds good. Awesome. Thank you. All right. All right, so once I've got that solid, I'm going to use a soft lure in my right hand. So no food there. We'll have food in my left. So I say soft lure and hard lure in this a little bit. I actually was taping this particular one for a video or a project that I was doing. Hard lure just means there's food in my hand. Soft lure means it looks like there's food in my hand, but there is no food in my hand. So I'm going to do soft lure around here, pick her up with this lure, and reward. Around, reward, around, reward, around, reward. All right, now I'm going to start using my clicker. So I'm going to do double soft lure. So we're going to come around here, here, click in motion. Nice work, girlfriend. The click in motion is important here because if you're going to use this for any type of crowd control work, so where the dog is circling around you with your service dog, you're going to want to be clicking in motion, not for finding a final position. And you're going to eventually start clicking in different locations around your body to encourage the movement as the thing that triggers the mark, and not just finding a final position. So around here, click in motion. Good. And here, motion. All right, now I'm going to get softer with my hands. Okay, so I'm going to do a little bit less. Nice. Quick while she's still in motion, feet in position. Nice work. Cool. All right, so I think we get the idea of luring. Again, that's the one that most people are pretty familiar with. So now we're going to move on to talking a little bit about modeling. So modeling is another one that some people might be familiar with. It was a method that people used for dog training a long time ago, and it still persists today. So modeling is the idea that we're going to put the dog into the position we want them to be in. So the really common example of this is we want the dog to sit, so we push on their butt and eventually they give in and they sit down. Why don't I want to use this? So the problem, besides that nobody likes being shoved into a position, because it takes away your choice and your free will, and just like humans, dogs like to have free will, but they don't learn much from it. They're not learning the mechanics of the behavior. They're learning a little bit about giving into pressure. But that being said, the actual physicality of it is doing something that we don't want. So if I push on my dog's butt, the first thing the dog wants to do is resist and keep standing, right? So if somebody, like if I come up and push you, the first thing that you want to do is not fall over and not get pushed. So the dog's going to do the same thing, which means they're going to tense up their muscles. Now, if your dog is tensing up their muscles, they're doing exactly the opposite of what you want them to do, which is for them to relax their muscles so that they can fall into the sit. So I just put that out there to say there are better ways to train than physically manipulating the dog into position. Another good example of this is sometimes they'll come up to a curb and someone will, so if you're walking with your dog, they get out of heel position, the person will reach back and kind of push their dog's butt into line. So they're now in heel position, but the dog didn't actually learn how to move themselves into that position. They just learned that when my human pushes on me, I'm going to be forced to move next to them. So if you've been doing that type of behavior, and a lot of people have, so don't feel bad if that's something that you have been doing. I think today you're going to see a lot of other options for teaching behavior that don't involve modeling or physical manipulation to get what you want. Okay, so that's just a little note on modeling because sometimes it does come up. The next thing we're going to talk about is capturing. Capturing is for behaviors your dog does frequently that you'd like to either label or have them do more of. So these are essentially like finished behaviors, as in the dog is already doing the thing you want them to do, and you just want them to want to be able to put that thing on cue. So I think it's easier with an example. So remember, we're using our mark. So anything that we reward, our dog will do more of or reinforce. Anything that we don't, they will generally do less of, depending. So an example of this, we do this with puppies all the time. A lot of time puppies will naturally sit. So when the puppy naturally sits, we mark that and reward it. The more times we mark and reward it, the more times the dog starts offering the sit. And pretty soon we can start labeling it as a sit right before they do it. Some other examples of this is potty training. So when you want to put potty, like going to the bathroom on cue, you go out to the potty spot, your dog's circling around. As soon as they're about to squat, you label it, mark and reinforce. So you can start by just marking and reinforcing for going to the bathroom out where they're supposed to. And then you can start labeling it, putting it on cue by labeling it right before they do the thing. But it's something they're already doing that you want to see more of, which is going to the bathroom outside. For trick applications, I've taught quite a few behaviors like this. One is sneezing. So sneezing is a behavior that my dog would do when they got into sunshine, so specifically into the car a lot of the time. So I would mark and reinforce sneezing, and then I got a dog that was sneezing for attention, which was hilarious. Never put that one on cue, but some ones that I did put on cue would be crossing your paws. So Jake used to cross his paws whenever he relaxed. As soon as he went to cross them, I would click, toss a cookie away. He comes back to lay down because it's nighttime, starts crossing his paw, click. Then you start getting a dog that looks at you and is like, is this what you want? And then as soon as they do it, you click and have a party. Same thing with bowing. Before I learned the way that I currently teach bowing, which I have a YouTube video of if you want to see that, but I captured it. A lot of dogs will stretch. So I would capture, and I kind of knew when my dog would stretch, I'd capture stretching, reward for it. And then you have a dog that's coming back to you and going, is this what you want? And doing the bow position. So that's what capturing is. What you want to think about is you add the cue once the dog is reliably coming back and doing the behavior after you reinforce the last behavior. So I'm going to show you a video example of that, but basically you're not adding the cue until you get loopy behavior, which means the dog does the thing, you marked it and reinforced, you toss the cookie away, the dog comes back, they do that thing again, and they're doing that in a loop. So let me share my screen again. I'm going to show you, in theory, I'm going to show you some capturing. I want to show you at the beginning of this. There we go. At the beginning of this capturing, I want to show you something I did wrong and talk about it so that you cannot make that mistake. So again, this part of it was for a video project I was doing, and I did it in my training room. Okay. We are going to capture a down from here. Okay, so I do this in my training room, and I'm just sitting here and waiting for her to lay down because I know eventually she will. However, because this is my training room, the thing that she does most in here is offer me different behaviors because we're going to train them. If I wanted to teach the down appropriate or capture the down, I should go to a more neutral environment where she's because I don't love frustrating her. So I'm more like I want to go to an environment where she's more likely to lie down, which would be like in my living room where most of the time she spends laying down. So this was a location problem that I had when I first started, and then you're going to see her get it too. And you saw that I said frustration, and I knew here that she was frustrated. I was trying to show a capturing example, but there was something that I could have done to make it easier for her. That, and I'm actually going to cross the way down there. So she offers me a bunch of behavior. She's throwing behaviors at me. And I just am staring into space, waiting for her to do the thing that I want her to do. Good. So I start, I'm goading myself there. Oh my God. So I click for her starting to go into that down position before she even reaches the down. Okay. And she offers it again. So so I give one to her and I toss away. So she's starting to get it here. It's really clear that she is like, oh, the thing she wanted me to do was lay down. And she starts offering some different variations of laying down. All I'm marking here is the actual laying down. She does a funny little back up there because she really thinks that she should be throwing behavior out because this is the training room. She gets a little frustrated. She walks away. Again, I don't want to promote frustration in my training, so I could have set this up much better. Good. But you'll see pretty quickly here that she starts getting really loopy. So I decide to continue with the session. Just knowing that I could do better next time, because when you know better, you do better. At this point, it's pretty loopy, so I can start adding the word. Yeah. That's bad. Down. Down. Good job. All right. I think that's enough of that. So with that, you're adding the word when the dog starts doing the behavior on repeat right after they've eaten the reinforcer. So this is a way to get behavior that you may not be able to get through luring. Now, obviously you can lure a down, but there's other behaviors a dog might do that you'd like to, that you can't lure. So for instance, sneezing is one of those behaviors. Sometimes you can shape or capture noises your dogs make, something like that, where you want to put a name to that eventually. So that's a little bit on capturing. Let's move on to shaping. Shaping, the next couple ones are much, I will say they're a more advanced way of training, and also they're one of the most important ways to train, to understand for service dog training or more complex training outside of your basic obedience stuff. So there's two types of shaping I'm going to talk about. I'm going to talk about regular shaping and free shaping. So technical definition of shaping is differential reinforcement of successive approximations towards a specific behavior. So what does that mean in real life? Shaping is basically building behavior by breaking it down into smaller steps or little components of the behavior so that your dog can be successful. So think of it like baby steps towards your final goal. And a good example of this is like my dog can get a beer from the fridge, right? But you can't lure him to do it. So I'm not going to be able to bring him over with a treat and have him get a beer. And you can't capture him because he's not naturally going to go get a beer. So I have to shape that behavior. And that means I have to break it down into tiny steps. And I'm not going to break it down into minute steps for this, but just as an example or an idea. So what is involved in my dog getting a beer from the fridge? Well, the first thing he needs to do is he needs to face the fridge. And then he needs to take a step towards the fridge. And then he needs to walk to the fridge. And then he needs to open the fridge. And then inside the fridge, he has to locate the item. And then once he's located the item, he has to pick it up. And once he's picked it up, he needs to turn back towards me. And then he needs to walk all the way back to me. And then he needs to hand it to me. We'll assume this is a self-closing fridge. So those are all the little steps of teaching the behavior. And that sounds insurmountable until you start breaking it down into lots of little tiny steps that you can train as components of the final behavior, which is totally achievable. So why would we shape? Shaping is the easiest way to teach complex behaviors. And it also makes you a better trainer if you can think about how to break something down into small steps. It's the same thing we do with children, with math, for example. So we don't start by doing algebra with children. We start by teaching them how to add. So how to do 1 + 1. Once they're doing well with that, we go on to the next step and the next step until they can do complex math. So the same thing is true of our dogs. There's a lot of real life applications to this. I'm going to give you one example. So when I was pet dog training, I had a dog that was just rescued. This person had just rescued it. I came into their house. The dog was so nervous. I couldn't get close to the dog. So there's no way I was going to be able to lure it to do anything. I wasn't getting within 3 or 4 feet of this dog without it moving away from me. And I didn't want to make it uncomfortable because it's already incredibly uncomfortable in its own skin due to whatever life circumstances it had before. And what I had to do was shape and capture behavior entirely from behind the gate 5 feet away from the dog. So the gate was like in a room with the dog. And what I would do is I would just start capturing and shaping behaviors towards what I wanted. So I can teach the dog to down if I start thinking about the dog looking down. And I click and reward and throw the cookie to it. And then it looks down even further and I click and reward. And then it bends an elbow and I click and reward. That type of free shaping, which we're going to talk more about, really intense and difficult to do. But I'm also going to show you some shaping that is relatively easy when you're combining it with some other techniques. So being able to work with a dog that you can't get close to, this is the same thing that happens. For those of you that don't know me, I started and learned about clicker training when I was working in Florida at a conservation center, and I was watching them train wild exotic animals using positive reinforcement to do cooperative care type behaviors. So being able to put a rhino's foot up on a pedestal so it could get a pedicure, for a cheetah to crawl into a box and stick its tail out for a blood draw. Those are the types of things that I was watching them do. And you can't touch the animal to make them do it. So instead you need to be able to shape those behaviors and use no force to do it. The other thing that shaping does is it's really beneficial to the dog because it makes them a smarter dog who can problem solve more easily and offers behavior more readily. So when we're talking about service dog stuff, we want a dog that offers behavior, especially when we're not able to necessarily make good decisions for ourselves or might not be able to help the dog. So we want a dog that's able to offer behavior even without our explicit direction. So it makes for a problem-solving dog. And a dog who can solve problems is generally more confident, which is great for dogs like service dogs, but it's a huge help for fearful dogs too. So I spent a lot of time shaping behavior with Jake when he was young because he was afraid of everything. Because I got him as a 2-year-old, he'd been tied to a trailer for the first 2 years of his life. He'd never been in a house, all of that. So when I got him, he was scared of everything. He would pee whenever anyone looked at him. So what I did is I spent a ton of time just saying yes to him, like, yes, you're doing that right. Yes, you're doing that right. And so I started shaping the behaviors that I wanted from him, and it built his confidence because he's like, oh yeah, I'm a good boy. I do all the things right. So it's really helpful for dogs that lack confidence as well. So I'm going to show you a little bit of some shaping. All right, so we're off of this one and we're on to a little bit of shaping. Forgot what example I put here, so let's see.
So when we're shaping anything, the first thing that we're going to do is put the object down. The object shouldn't be down until you're ready to do the work. Okay. Typically I would use a clicker.
So in this video, I'm actually shaping the dog to go on a cookie sheet, so like a metal cookie sheet. This is a confidence building activity that I was working on. But it also shows you how you might break down a behavior like stepping on something that makes a weird sound for a dog.
But who the heck knows where my thing is? So we're using the word yes. All right, so I'm going to put my pan down. Yes. The moment they even think about looking at it, I'm going to yes, toss the cookie away. Yes. They're going to come back to it. Yes. So I'll start by just reinforcing yes. Coming back to the object, yes. And if you need to put the object between you and the dog so that they always have to come back towards it, yes. Good. Okay, yes. Now I'm going to up the criteria. So I'm going to say you have to touch it, yes. Either with your nose or foot, before I'm going to yes you, yes. Good job. So she's consistently touching it with her nose. Now I'm going to wait for the foot. So when she comes back, I think she lost some of it. Yes. When one foot goes on, I'm going to reward. Yes. Yes. Good job. All right. We've consistently gotten 1 foot. We're going to wait for 2 feet. Yes. Good job. Yes. Good.
So I had an opportunity there that I missed. She started to put 2 feet on. I waited for her, but she lifted her paw. If the dog was struggling to get the second foot on, I could start marking for just lifting the second foot, and then eventually they would put it on.
Yes, good job. Now you can always, if she puts 2 feet on, yes, and reward her on the object. So if you're having issues where he's not really understanding, you can reward in position and then free and release him. And then, yes, when he does it again.
Okay, so that's just a little example of shaping. What makes the difference between shaping and free shaping is free shaping, you're not influencing the dog's behavior. So in that video, I influenced the dog's behavior by standing in front of the item, by tossing the cookies behind the dog. So they basically had to come back to me to get the reinforcer. So I knew that they were going to turn back to the object. And then I fed in position, which is also something that is, going to help the dog with the behavior. Then there's also free shaping. So free shaping is basically, I'm not influencing the dog's behavior by setting them up to be most likely to make the choice I'd like them to make. It's simply watching the dog and clicking any behavior that gets me closer to my goal. There's no one that's better or worse than the other. You should do what's working best for your dog. And a lot of times that's just normal shaping, but free shaping is a good exercise to practice your skills to see if you can pick a behavior out from your dog and get them to do it. So let's see, I wrote a little example. Oh, a good example is going, training, go to place. I might set the room up so the dog, it goes like what you saw in the video. So it goes like dog, bed, or the cookie chin, and then human. And then I know the dog is most likely to turn around and come to me. So in free shaping, I'm not going to set the dog up in any particular way so that we just want them to throw out behaviors, and then I'm going to refine those behaviors into something that I want. Okay, so I'm going to show you an example of that. So basically in this video, I'm shaping Whip to get into a box, and she doesn't know what I want. She's just offering behavior, and I mark the ones that get me closest to my goal. So let's show you that.
So our goal is we're going to free shape all 4 feet in the box. This isn't an exercise that we've done before. If it's going well, I'm gonna free shape having her actually go ahead and sit in the box. So we'll see how that goes. I'm gonna preload my hand because she is a very quick shaper. All right, bye.
So I'm clicking anytime she looks at the box here. Now she's taking a step towards the box because I've clicked it. Now I'm marking for her putting a foot in the box. She puts a back foot in the box. I mark that because I didn't specify which foot it needed to be. And ultimately I want all 4 of them in there. So I'll mark for that.
All right, I'm gonna raise criteria. We got a sniff, so I'm not gonna raise criteria.
So I was going to raise criteria there, meaning that now I'm going to say I want 2 feet in the box before I'm going to click for it. But we didn't get loopy behavior. She started sniffing the floor, which means she fell out of her loop, which means I'm going to go back and just ask for the 1 foot.
Love your putting your back foot in there. Really, that's hilarious.
So I got my 2 feet.
Just gonna reset her a touch.
So there I reset her because nothing was happening for a while. So I just had her do a hand touch and turn back towards the item. Notice the setup is different here. She's near a wall. She's next to the object. She's really having to think a lot more for herself than when the dog is looking at me from behind the object.
Good.
And I missed an opportunity to click here. So because she looks back at the box, I could have re-engaged her by clicking there for it. I didn't. So I clicked the next one. You're going to make mistakes when you do this. I want to be really clear that like no trainer is perfect. Mistakes happen all the time. And still, as long as you get most of it right, the dog's going to learn the thing.
Just reset her there because she forgot what we were doing. Good. And I'm gonna go back to 1 foot in the
And
box.
it's not that she forgot, it's that I marked, I missed a mark on that one, but it's all fine. And you'll see that she understands the behavior despite me making one back.
Front foot in. There we go. There's 2 feet. Good girl. Oh, good. Look at you, you fabulous animal. Yeah, look at you.
So she got all her 4 feet in the box. I had a little jackpot for her.
Get that again. Oh my goodness, did you read my mind? Girl, you are. So I'm just jackpotting for that. We'll see if we can get one more. Good. And we'll go ahead and call that session. Mission achieved, girlfriend. Free.
All right. So, oh good, I spelled targeting wrong. So that's just another example of shaping. That was more free shaping because the dog is driving the behavior there. And I had a goal in mind and I was just waiting for her to produce behaviors that got me towards that goal. So that's a little bit about shaping. So let's talk about targeting. So targeting goes hand in hand with shaping because I mostly shape when I'm doing targeting. So a target is when the dog touches something, typically either the handler or an object with some part of their body. It could be their chin, their foot, their nose, their paw, whatever. Examples you've likely seen me use would be a hand touch for a recall. So dog touches their nose to a human hand when they come to you. They target painter's tape on a flag and then transfer that to a nose boop alert. So if you're teaching your dog to do some type of medical alert, you can use the nose boop for that. You use a target to train it. A front foot target on the feed bucket. You've seen me do this quite a bit to teach the heeling position. And then a chin target to the human leg to interrupt leg shaking or some other behavior that you want to interrupt. So those are some ways we can use a target. The question is, why would we use a target? So targets provide clarity to the dog. It's much easier to go where someone wants you to go when there's essentially an X that's marking the spot or like a recognizable item that they've seen before. So it provides clarity, which is important. These spaces or targets can also be made really high value, and that makes training easier. So if your dog knows that when they lay on their bed, food's delivered to them, they're going to lay on their bed more often. And you can use those targets to do things like having your dog go to place when people come over and make them very high value very quickly. And they're also important because they're easily generalized. So once your dog understands the concept of a target, they are able to recognize or generalize more quickly and learn new targets very fast. So I can get a behavior very quickly using targets or multiple targets because my dog has so much experience touching things with their body parts, so their paw, their nose, whatever. So it makes for new behavior acquisition, makes it really quick. So let me show you a quick video of using a target and some shaping kind of combined on this one. And I apologize for spelling targeting wrong. Whoopsie. All right. So on this one, I'm going to be shaping her to close a mailbox, which is not something that she has done before. You can see in my hand, I have a target stick. And up on the climbs over there, I have a mailbox with some green tape on it, which is going to be my target.
So today we are going to work on starting the beginning process of teaching her to close the mailbox. The mailbox is something that she knows how to open and take mail out of. She doesn't know how to close it. So we're going to use a target to start helping her learn that. We're going to use this target stick. I seem to have lost my target stick. So we're going to use this one to start with, and I'm just going to warm her up by teaching her that this is a target stick that's important because she's never used this target. Also, this target stick is incredibly cumbersome. It's just literally the only thing I had then, and then I cut the bottom off of it because nobody needs a 3-foot target stick to start with. And it's literally just one of those signposts that you use outside for when it snows. I put tape on the target stick. I have tape on the mailbox. The other things I'm doing to set her up for success, I'm going to elevate the mailbox so that she is so that it's hard to open it, because I know that trying to open it's going to be a go-to behavior for her. The other thing that I did is I pulled the string through the other side of the mailbox, so there's less of a a way for her to open the mailbox. So hopefully she will think target instead of tug on something.
So you can see that I am trying to set the dog up for success. I'm taking away the rope that opens the mailbox because that's a behavior she already knows and has been rewarded for. So she's going to naturally want to pull open the mailbox because she thinks she'll get rewarded for it. And I'm going to elevate it so that it's a little bit more difficult for her to do other behaviors that I don't want.
So that's what we're going to start with working on. So I'm just going to do a couple reps of presenting the target stick and having her touch. I'm going to, I know this is super cumbersome because it's 3 feet long, but.
And when I start doing target work with dogs, they're naturally going to want to come up and investigate the thing. I'm marking them investigating it. So it's like kind of a little bit of capturing there. So that, and I want them standing. A lot of people will try to do this from sitting, but when you're first starting to shape a target, you want them standing so that they offer more behavior.
Sometimes you just lose stuff and you gotta make shift it. Okay. So once I get her nicely touching this target, because touching a thing is something that she knows pretty well, I'm going to transition pretty quickly to getting the mailbox down. All right, so I'm going to put out this, and then I'm going to put the mailbox on top. Can you come up here? Good girl. All right. Put this here. I've taken the mail out of it. Hopefully it'll stay. Might have to tilt it back a little bit so that it stays closed. Yeah, that'll probably work. All right. Whip. Here. Touch. Nice job. All right, so we're gonna start by just putting the target in front of the mailbox. So starting there, touch. Good. Touch. Okay. All right. I'm gonna haven't seen the mailbox in a while. Touch. You're skipping steps, girl.
So it's obvious that she saw the green tape on the mailbox there and she was like, oh, I've done a target before. I'm going to touch the green tape. And that's probably what she wants. This is what I'm talking about when I say that once you start teaching your animal how to do a target, they're going to start offering to do it in a variety of like environments, which makes learning new things so easy. Because again, she has not done closing of this mailbox that I can remember, but she's like, oh, I see a target, I go to it, I touch it, I get cookies. And she's like, great, that's awesome.
All right, so now I'm going to put.
But I am going to show you here how I would do it if your dog didn't automatically just go over to that target.
The target in front of the green tape on the mailbox. Good. Very nice. Put it here, touch. Good, very nice. It's hard to control this thing. Touch. Good. All right, so she's already making the transition to touching the mailbox because she's a smart dog. What I would do is use the butt end of the target to kind of point out the tape that's on the mailbox. Touch. Good. And we're just gonna reinforce. All right, I'm gonna get rid of the target because it's just cumbersome. She knows what she's doing. Touch. Good.
So there she goes to put her back feet on it. So she thinks, because we use this for backing up as well. So she thinks maybe I'll try that. I ignored that behavior because it's not what I want. And then I cued the touch so that she could get it right.
Nice.
And if I need to, I can always use my finger to point it out.
If you get green tape on moments. Right here. Touch. Oh. So if she needs extra help, I can point it back out again.
So again, there she's offering another behavior, which is her watch behavior, looking between my legs. That's not what I want. I'm going to go back and do a little easier rep.
So touch. Yes. Gonna get to my clicker in time, so let's do the verbal marker. Good touch. Nice. All right, so now I'm just gonna open it just ever so slightly. Good.
So I'm just changing the picture a tiny bit for the dog.
With touch. Good. I don't need her to close it to start. My criteria just that she started touching it. With touch. Good. And again. Slightly without it falling open. Just hard. Okay. Try that. Good. With touch. Nice. So what I would do over time is just have it look further and further open until she can close it all the way with touch. With touch.
So she didn't go to it right there. I pointed out with my hand. She does it. I click in reward. If we're getting multiples of these in a row, we might go back another step so that she's more successful.
With touch. Yeah, so I'm going to reset that up for her so that she can be successful and think about for next time how I can make this fall completely open. Maybe by using the, I'm just feeding her over here while I try to figure this out. We're going to do one more touch and then we will call it. Equipment failure. With touch. Awesome. All right. I think that's a good session for today. Nice work, baby girl. All done.
All right. So that is the last of the videos that I wanted to show you around how we might use a target to do a behavior like closing the mailbox or closing a door or closing a drawer or doing a nose alert or finding a specific mark on the wall. There's so many things that you can use targets for. Kind of the sky is the limit once your dog knows how to touch body parts to other things in their environment. So even like shoulder to leg for heel position, there's so much that you can do. The other thing I wanted to just touch on briefly is back chaining. So back chaining isn't a method. It's more of like a technique to incorporate. I don't know what actually the definition between method and technique are. So it's just a thing that you can use the above things to do to get a different way to teach behavior or to get strong behavior. So back chaining is teaching the dog the last step in the behavior chain and then working backwards from there until you reach the first step of the behavior. So at that point, the dog has repeatedly done all the other steps of the behavior once you reach the first one so many times that it becomes easier for the dog to complete the entire behavior chain. So it helps the dog remember the full chain because the practice has been on the hind end of it so much. So here's an example of that. So in guide dogs, so when you teach a guide dog to go around the obstacle, right? I'll try to explain this in a way that makes sense, but basically you teach a guide dog to walk like on a straight line. So the dog is walking along the sidewalk, right? They're walking along the sidewalk. They come upon an obstacle. They need to go around the obstacle and return to the sidewalk. Okay. So like that. So what we want to do when we first teach this is we drop the harness. They're walking on their straight line. We drop the harness. We walk all the way almost back to the sidewalk. We've gone around the obstacle and we pick up the harness and we have them harness handle and we have them do one step. And that one step completes the chain that we need them ultimately to do, which is return to the sidewalk, right? So now they've gotten one step back to the sidewalk. Yay, good dog. Go to the next obstacle, we drop the handle, we go around the obstacle, and 2 steps away from getting back on the sidewalk, we pick up the handle, tell them to go forward. They take 2 steps onto the sidewalk, we click and reward that, and then we go back from there. So now we're halfway around the obstacle, we pick up the handle, we ask the dog to go forward, the dog goes forward, hits the sidewalk again, we click for that. By the time we start asking them, like once they get up to the obstacle to go around it, they've already had so much practice completing the entire behavior that they're just like, oh, no big deal. They go around the obstacle, come back to the sidewalk. So that's one example of back chaining, but it can be a pretty useful technique for working more complex behavior chains. Okay, so that's everything I wanted to talk about. I see that I have a question over here. So let me just read that. Anything to watch out for getting a dog comfortable with riding in a pull behind bike trailer? I just got one and plan to start shaping, rewarding her getting in and sitting in it in the house, then moving it a bit and then pulling it a few inches. Yeah, so this is a great one to shape. Getting into the trailer, it can be a really awesome one to shape. I've done this before. I think I might have a video of shaping Cool Whip to get in, but definitely creating a lot of value with the trailer, making sure when specifically you're talking about the bike trailing, making sure it's stable. So making sure the bike isn't going to fall over and making sure the trailer isn't going to fall over in any way, because nothing will scare a dog that maybe isn't like the most confident animal than trying to do something, being really confident about it, and then the thing falling over and scaring the heck out of them. So making sure everything is stable when you do it. And then walking next to your bike. So that's not really related to the other things we talked about, but when you're doing bike trailers specifically, you want to spend a lot of time walking next to the bike, jogging next to the bike, having someone walk the bike in front of you, you being, you walking behind with the dog before you ever start putting them in the trailer. And then, like you said, once they're shaped to get into the trailer, spending time walking around the house, rewarding for calm down behavior in the trailer or sitting, whatever the trailer is designed to do. But progress slowly. I don't know your dog, but there are some dogs that are like, no big deal, let's get in the trailer and go. And there are some dogs that's going to be a really overwhelming experience. So we want to take it on take it as slowly as the dog needs you to go. And that's true of all training. And you want to be able to watch your dog and say like, okay, I am seeing stress signals. My dog is yawning. They're lipping their lips. They're sniffing. They're doing things that show the dog is stressed versus, okay, cool. This experience is great. Relaxed face. Then you move on to the next step. But yes, I would definitely start with shaping that behavior. Because it's a good one. And even so far as to, if your dog has a really good place behavior, you could start using the trailer as, your place spot for a period of time to further reinforce the value of that spot. Okay, any other questions about that or any of the stuff that I talked about today? If you're watching this afterwards on Patreon, you can write your questions down in the comment section below, and I would be happy to answer those as well. But hopefully this was a good tutorial just on a back to basics kind of thing, or for those of you who are new to this type of training. And yeah, that's pretty much it. You all have an awesome day and happy training.